Stress Me Out, a project by James R. Normell. That's me. Presentation agenda 1. Stress 101. Here I will define stress and summarize the body's reaction to stress. 2. Perception. Here I will explain optimism, self-efficacy, and hardiness. 3. Stress management. Here I will explain why it is important to manage stress. 4. Stress from work. Here I will explain specific kinds of stress that arise in my line of work or for people in similar situations. 5. Personal dealings. Here I will reflect on my experiences dealing successfully and unsuccessfully with stress. 6. Final words. Here I will describe some strategies for managing and responding to stress. Stress 101. Stress refers to the physiological response that occurs when an organism fails to respond appropriately to emotional or physical threat. The amygdala interprets the event and sends signals to the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus tells the adrenal glands to release adrenaline and cortisol in preparation for fight or flight. That reaction also increases the heart rate, which also increases blood pressure, and it also expands the air passageways, all in an attempt to prepare the body for fight or flight. Perception. Optimism. To look on the bright side of things. In other words, it's being hopeful and positive regardless of the circumstances. Self-efficacy. This is self-confidence in one's ability to accomplish a particular task or a series of tasks. It is different from self-confidence because one can be confident in themselves, yet not so confident in their ability to accomplish a task, which would be self-efficacy. Hardiness. This is the ability to endure hardship and remain undisturbed. In other words, the ability to go through very difficult times, yet remain focused and strong, if not stronger than before. Stress management. If stress remains unchecked, it can grow and become chronic, and chronic stress is known to cause a variety of illnesses. Heart disease, asthma, obesity, diabetes, headaches, depression and anxiety, gastrointestinal problems, Alzheimer's disease, accelerated aging, and premature death can all derive from excessive, unchecked, unmanaged stress. Stress from work. In my line of work, one major component of stress that we are prone to experience is compassion fatigue. Compassion fatigue because all the students on my caseload have been or are going through a lot of traumatic experiences on a regular basis. And it is my job to help them through those hard times and keep them focused on their academic progress. Compassion fatigue refers to indifference to charitable appeals on behalf of those who are suffering, experienced as a result of frequency or number of such appeals. Because I see so many students who go through so many traumatic experiences, it is easy to experience compassion fatigue and become, in other words, cold and uncaring, or burnt out. Post-traumatic stress disorder. This disorder refers to a debilitating psychological condition triggered by a major traumatic event, such as rape, war, terrorist attack, death of a loved one, a natural disaster, or a catastrophic event. My students often go through traumatic experiences on a regular basis at school, at home, and everywhere in between. So I am exposed to it either directly or indirectly, and therefore making PTSD a very likely form of stress that I may experience from work. Personal dealings. Now, here is a time when I was unsuccessful at dealing with stress. I was getting increasingly frustrated with my job as an IT technician at UMass Boston. I felt overworked, underpaid, and underappreciated. As a result, my performance began to really suffer. It was so hard to get up in the morning that I could not even go through an entire week without being tardy. I always made up my hours, yet I never expressed exactly how I felt to my boss and my colleagues. I eventually fizzled out, burned out, and left that job. That was not a very successful way of dealing with the stress that I was going through. Yet a successful way that I did deal with some of the responsibilities of life was when I found myself struggling to cope with the issues of daily living between my job, my schoolwork, family drama, maintaining a romantic relationship, and operating as a spiritual leader at my church. I had to find some way to deal with all of this stress. One major component of dealing with the stress was that I often poured out my heart in worship and prayer. I also joined a football team and a boxing gym. All of this helped me to be pretty grounded and able to stay above the flood of stresses that filled my everyday. Final words. Now, some of the best ways to deal with stress, or two of the best ways to deal with stress, are opening up. Opening up to someone helps to make sense of what has happened and even can give a sense of control over our reaction to a situation. It also grants the opportunity to gain insight from a trustworthy person and help to look at the situation in a more positive light. Just talking to someone about a stressful situation can begin to relieve some of that stress and begin the healing process. The only problem is someone now knows your issue, which may actually end up causing more stress. So the second tactic is to just write it down. The benefit of writing is that no one else knows about your problems. But the downside is that there is no one else to share those problems with. And that concludes my presentation about stress.